Hello, and welcome back to another great episode of hashtag Screw the W2. And
Yeah.
today I got another great guest on, Matt Theriault of Epic Real Estate, who, kind of said screw the W2 many years ago and has been helping, I don't know, countless real estate investors saying screw the W2 since then. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you as well. So now as kind of what I ask all my guests on this show here is, can you take us back to your previous job, before you start getting into real estate? What
Mm,
was it like? What was like an average day for you?
got it. Well, I've had so many of them.
Okay.
So many different, not average days. Well, I've got those too, but I have so many W-2s.
Okay.
Um, the last one that I had, I was bagging groceries.
Okay.
And it was after the collapse of my record label. I was in the music business for 15 years.
Okay.
And the digital download came along and kind of just changed the way everyone buys music.
Sure.
So we made all of our money off of selling CDs. That stands for compact discs,
Yeah.
right?
And for the really
And
young ones, there was this streaming
yes,
service called Napster one time.
that's right. And the only reason I say that, and it's funny to me now, is because I actually had an employee that had no idea what CD stood for.
Yep.
I was like, really? Okay. That's when you start feeling old. But I've never, if I look back and before that, I was working at a record label. So that's how I got into the music business.
Okay.
And then I had all kinds of other types of odd jobs. I've always had an entrepreneurial mind, but you got to pay the bill. So
Hmm.
I have cooked Chinese food. I have washed dishes. I've cleaned golf carts. I've sold insurance. I did all kinds of weird stuff. I've been in countless multi-level marketing companies,
Oh, wow.
just trying to feed myself.
Yeah.
But if I look back, like I never ever made a good employee.
Mm.
I would be more of an observer of the owner or the operation and look for different ways of how I could do that myself or how it could be done better. And I would say when I was at the record labels, when I really launched myself into being an entrepreneur,
Okay.
because I remember I had to be there. It is a normal 9 to 5, typically
Hmm.
like an 8 to 6. And I had to be there Monday through Friday. And the owner, who would come in a few days a week, and a lot of times he'd come in like extremely hungover. So obviously he's having a whole lot of fun. But I remember this is like what the big turning point was of like what it looks like to run a real business is on Thursdays, the FedEx guy would come and drop off the check from his distribution company.
Oh, wow.
And boy, he was Johnny on the spot on Thursdays waiting for the FedEx guy. And I just kind of saw that and I was like, oh my gosh. And there'd be, sometimes $1 million check, like these
Wow.
massive, massive checks. And I was like, well, I've been responsible for the last several releases. I'm doing all the marketing, the promotion. I'm connecting them with the artists. I'm connecting them with the
Hmm.
DJs. I'm doing all this stuff. And I'm getting, I don't know, that's maybe $60,000 a year,
Mm.
and he'd get 10 times my salary every single week.
Wow.
And so that was where I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this. And so that's where I said, screw the W-2
Okay.
and went out and built this little music empire. And I did very well for myself. But,
Okay.
life happens and technologies emerge and buyer and consumer behaviors change. And I think a lot of people are experiencing that right now.
Hmm.
But at this time, people used to walk into a music store
Yep.
and go through the bins and look for
Yep.
their favorite record. And at that time, if there was a hit song that you wanted, you essentially had to pay, $18 to get the whole album if you
Yep.
just wanted one
Exactly.
song.
Yep.
Napster came along and says, no, you don't need to do that. Just take the one song and you're done.
Yep. And oh, by the way,
Order
we'll
money.
do this illegally and we won't charge you.
Right. And then Apple saw the opportunity. So iTunes came out and they started doing the same thing, but they charge you 99 cents. So still
Yep.
much better deal paying 99 cents for your one song than having to spend $18 to get that one song and 17 other songs you didn't even want.
Hmm.
So that's what I'm saying. Technology changed, consumer behavior changed. So all of a sudden, I'm 34 years old, out on the street, filed bankruptcy. The wife left and
Wow.
starting over again. So I went back to a W-2. Like
Yep.
I didn't know what else to do. So I ended up bagging groceries and did that for about 6 months and realized. So this is like might be a little bit more in alignment with what the theme of the show is
Hmm.
that I I realized that, oh my God, if I don't wake up, this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life.
Mm.
Like nobody is coming to save me. No one even cares that I'm bagging groceries. And, there's just a certain level that I'm ever going to get to.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll be the manager of the grocery store one day. And I was 34, so I'll be what, 54 when that happens.
Yep.
And now I'm making $120,000 a year managing the grocery store.
Yep.
And I was like, well, that's not where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I saw what my future looked like if I stayed that course. So I had to change course.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the most unlikely mentor, the grocery store manager, had said, real estate, and I think we talked about this earlier, real
Yep.
estate's the final frontier where the average person has a legitimate shot at actually getting wealthy. And
Mm-hmm.
I really missed my money for the music business. I was like, well, I got to, regroup and strap in and start over. And so I went out and became a real estate agent.
Okay.
And so that wasn't necessarily a W-2,
Right. More of a
more of your
1099 or
self-employed
commission.
category,
Yeah.
right? But really, like, and you make good money, but you can also make very little money,
Yep.
right? Being a self-employed person, particularly in real estate, it's like the lowest paid easy work
Yep.
and the highest paid hard work. And so you can go both directions. But when I made that transition to actually becoming a real estate investor and starting a real estate business, not just
Okay.
being a one-man show, is where life really changed for me.
All right.
I don't know that I must have answered like 17 questions there, but
Oh
I
yeah,
think
no, yeah, we're about halfway through the question list, so no, that's definitely great.
okay.
But obviously, and you've shared your story numerous times on numerous podcasts. You went from
Mhm.
making seven figures to $7 bagging groceries. Then obviously, you know, unlikely as it was, the manager was your mentor, and hey, how about real estate? Um, since then, when you started that and you were bagging groceries for $7 an hour, how long did it take you to get from there to where you got of, oh, I have all these streams of passive income that I
Mhm.
don't have to work if I don't want to?
Yeah, so that was another big epiphany. If a lot of people that read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yep.
you know, it renders people certifiably unemployable.
Yep.
They are unW2able, right?
Yep. I like that
And
term.
but it introduced me to a new concept that I was not privy to, because in the music business, it was all about making money, stacking my paper, and
Yep.
and living the life and having a big fat bank account. But I was still had was kind of it was a job, because I
Yep.
was only as good as my last release, and I had to like produce the next project and put that
Mm-hmm.
out to keep the revenue coming in. When I made that transition, or when I became a real estate investor and got a hold of that book and got introduced to this concept of escape the rat race,
Mm-hmm.
and what that actually means, and there's a formula to it to get your monthly passive income to exceed your monthly expenses. I was traumatized having to go back and bag groceries at the age of 34. So I was like, I'm not going back there again. I need to try a different approach. And so I was really attracted to that ideology, or
Okay.
that method of setting yourself financially free. And so I did it, and I just took it one step at a time, and that's all. It was a sole focus that I had. And I did that in about 3.5 years.
Oh
I got
wow.
that passive income from my real estate to exceed my monthly expenses. Now I smushed down my expenses significantly,
Right.
right? So I wasn't wealthy, I wasn't rich by any means. I did not have my seven figures back,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have to work. And that was
Right.
a real eye opener, was that, oh my God, I just accomplished, and I saw stats along the way and everything, but I just accomplished in 4 years what 95% of the population that works a W-2
Yep.
can't do in 40 years.
Exactly.
I was like, oh my gosh, like what a scam that is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that was like, okay, so rather than focusing on building this mountain of money to eventually create a stream of money,
Yep.
if the stream of money is the end result, that's the goal, focus on the stream first.
Yep.
And
Or
then, you
multiple
can build
streams.
excess of that stream, and then the stream can build the mountain for you.
Yep.
And so that was like the difference between 40 years and 4 years. And that's been
Mm-hmm.
like my life mission ever since, once I had that epiphany, because I actually realized it and I experienced it, and I've shared it with students since, and they've done it much faster than me,
Mm-hmm.
just because they had someone actually show them how to do it. Like I was able to
Right.
go out by trial and error. I mean, there's Corey, there's Mackenzie, there's Mora, there's Anita, there's Brad, there's Enrique, like they all of Josh,
Yep.
and Josh. I've got two Joshes that have both done it, and they've walked away from their day jobs, their W-2s, in less than 24 months.
Hmm.
My guy Josh that actually somewhat works for me. Um, he was out of his Chevron job. He was a Chevron engineer,
Okay.
and he'd been there for 10 years, had a very healthy six-figure income.
Okay.
And in 11 months, he was out, quit his
Nice.
job. I'm losing money by staying here. I'm making too
Yeah.
much money in real estate.
Yeah. And I think that'd be a real eye opener for a lot of people because I'm sure if not everyone, most of his friends and family are like, why are you leaving a six-figure job here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, he's not your typical story. We know results are not typical,
Yeah.
but it does show you with focus and the right consistent activities with some persistence, what's possible.
Hmm. Yeah, sounds good. And I know you said it took you about 4 years to make that change and develop that lifestyle. Do you remember like either exactly or approximately what was your freedom day that, oh, my passive income actually exceeds my expenses. I don't need to work if I don't want to.
It it probably passed it before I realized it.
Okay.
Um, and then I just kind of looked at numbers. I was like, oh, I got a little extra this month,
Okay.
and I didn't really work too hard, right? And so that was kind of the moment. So if that was 2001 and probably around 2011-ish, 2010,
Okay.
2011-ish, right in there. And then I said, well, good, I did it. I
All
quit.
right.
I'm retiring. I'm
Yep.
out. And so I did that for about 40, 45 days. And I was like, oh, I'm bored. I need to do something else.
I'm not a big golfer. I'm not going to go to the bingo
Yeah.
club or anything like that. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have all day. Here's the big epiphany of becoming financially free. And I'm going to make that distinction. I wasn't wealthy, but I was financially free. I didn't have
right.
to,
Yep.
didn't have to depend or worry about my money. Is that you can only go to the driving range so many times. You can only go to the gym so many times. You can only go to the
Yep.
movies so many times. You can only go to happy hours so many times before that starts stacking up and you're not feeling great. But what I discovered mostly was probably my biggest shift was, oh my gosh, no one can do this with me because everybody else is going to work.
Yep.
Right. So it was kind of lonely at the same time. So that was the big thing. I was like, okay. And then I was bored also, but this is no fun to do everything by yourself.
Hmm.
Let's just choose a new mission in life, something that you could get excited about, and do that and start interacting with people again and come out of your little log cabin and,
Yep.
and do your thing.
Sounds
So,
good.
mhm.
When you mentioned that, and obviously there's, you know, downsides, if you want to call it that, with, being financially free, it's kind of lonely, you get bored, etc. Are those, how do I say, are those things you kind of miss from the W-2 world where you kind of had the camaraderie, kind of had the day-to-day schedule of it per se, or was there anything you missed from the W-2 world?
I will. One thing, being an entrepreneur and being solely responsible for your own financial livelihood and the livelihood of your family, and now the livelihood of your staff and your employees, is it can feel a little bit like, I don't know, a grind,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're constantly, you don't feel like you can totally rest.
Right.
Now that's like this next level of financial freedom I'm moving towards.
Okay.
So I've got the passive income to pay for my whole personal life. I could quit tomorrow and everything be fine. But now I'm working towards this passive income to pay for the business,
Okay.
right? And pay for payroll and everything. So that time can be taken off. But there's a huge difference between, what I need personally and what the business needs,
Right.
which is way above
Yeah.
off the frame, right? And so that's where I'm going now. So it I kind of miss that, you could go into a day job, a W-2, and you could coast a day or two and probably get away with it. No one would even notice.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I guess I kind of miss that of being able to take my foot off the gas a little bit and not have to be
Okay.
so focused on performance all the time.
Okay.
That'd be the only thing. And then, then you take work home with you.
Yeah.
So like I'm sitting here thinking about work all weekend long, and at the W-2 is like, no, I'm thinking about the barbecue and the football game all
Yep.
weekend long.
Yep. Yeah. I'll
I think I
tackle that
miss
on
that a
Monday.
little bit. but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, so sounds good. Well, I appreciate your time again, Matt, and sharing your story with my listeners, and hopefully inspire others to take a step back, look at what they want in life, and hopefully leave that W-2. If
Mm-hmm.
there is anyone out there that maybe feels, shall we say, stuck in their job, or maybe even feels, there's no way I can be an entrepreneur, or I have to stay in my job because of, you know, insert health insurance, retirement plan,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be, what would be your advice to that person?
It would be, and I ask this to my students when I first get to meet them, what is the most important thing to you?
Okay.
Because people will, I said, is financial freedom the most important thing to you? And I'd say 90% of the room will always say yes. And then you run that along with what their actions are. And then the next question might be, how important is having your house paid off free and clear to you?
Mm.
And a lot of the same hands go up. I'm
Yep.
just like, you realize those are two conflicting values, right?
Hmm.
And is being debt free important to you? And a lot
Yep.
of hands will go up, and that's a conflicting value if financial
Yep.
freedom is something that you want. And how important is your 401k to you?
Hmm.
Right? Oh, very important. Oh, I get the employer match and all this stuff. And so if you're saying financial freedom is important to you, but you're focused on, let me pay the house down, let me remove my debt, let me max out the 401k because I'm good for retirement.
Yep.
That's going to give you an entirely different outcome, and it ain't going to be
Yep.
financial freedom. I mean, you just got
Exactly.
to look at the data, you just got to look at the stats. So I think the advice is to decide what is really important to you, what is most important to you, because you can have health insurance without having a job,
Yep.
right? You can have that. You can make money on the side or revenue on the side and not have to be a total entrepreneur these days. The
Hmm.
the internet has made so much stuff available just to the average person that you could just
Uh-huh.
work on your part-time stuff and actually probably make that transition at some point and not even realize that you were an entrepreneur,
Yep. Yeah.
right? Because there's so much plug and play opportunity out there. It all takes work, but it's so much plug and play stuff that you don't have to even invent or think about anything anymore.
Hmm.
So I would say just start. What ideally, where do I want to be in 10 years?
Hmm.
And then, okay, let's start creating a plan of how we're going to get there. Last thing, when it comes to money, this is the biggest thing for me, and I kind of touched on it, was anytime money is a start, you're going to be involved in some sort of money transaction,
Hmm.
right? Just kind of stop and pause. Okay, is there any way that I can turn this into a stream of income as opposed to a pile of income?
Okay.
And a lot of times you won't have an answer, and that's okay. But
Yep.
just pause and analyze that first.
Hmm.
As the more streams that you can create, the faster you're going to get your financial freedom, and you're not going to care about the W-2 one way or the other anyway.
Yep. No, it makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
actually just kind of reminds me of another story someone had where, is a car an asset or a liability? And I was reading about one guy that he wanted to be financially free. He had a car and then he put it up on Turo.
Of course.
So that what was a liability then became an asset. And then going against the whole debt free, I think he took out a loan against his car and then bought another car and then took out another car loan. And I think he's
Yeah.
up to like 7 or 8 cars on Turo. And
Nice
normally
little
people think
fleet.
of a car as a liability. Well,
Yeah.
now every single one of those cars is bringing them money.
Exactly. Totally. Right. You just have to think a little bit. How can I turn this into a stream of income?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, makes a lot
Perfect
of
example.
sense. So.
Totally.
Well, in closing, Matt, and again, thank you for your time and coming onto my show. I know we kind of briefly touched base on this for my podcast, but with 2023, any big events coming up or any big new programs you're launching that you're excited or want to talk about?
Yeah, we're about actually a few hours away from launching our brand new website, which is going to have an amazing calendar on there, which
Okay.
it'll show everything. It'll be very easily accessible. And we did that almost more for our internal team as well as our clients and customers, just so everyone's on the same page.
Okay.
But just in context with what we're talking about right now, I just finished a book called The Seven. Oh, it's a long title. That's how new it is. The seven imminent threats to your American dream and the
Oh,
one investment class that can neutralize all of them. So it's a free book. It's a downloadable book. I'm in the process of getting it printed, but the e-version is ready already, and I'm gonna make an audiobook out of it. But if you want a free copy, you can go to epicfreedombook.com.
okay.
Epicfreedombook.com. And there's a significant section in there about your job and how that could potentially even if you're paid six figures or above, how your job could actually be robbing you of your financial freedom.
Yeah. Wow, makes sense. I'll have to check that out myself, and I'll put that link in my show notes for all the listeners, and hopefully they get their hands on a copy as well. So
Super. I appreciate it. Thanks,
sounds
John.
good. Yep. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate your time, and have a great rest of the week.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.